Hey, what's up, everybody? Joseph Stewart here, ready to go ahead and give y'all this presentation on Atonement Chapters 9 through 11. So let's go ahead and let's dive into it. So, a quick recap. In the last set of chapters, which were chapters 5 through 8, we learned a few key things that are crucial to understanding the plot of the play going forward. So we learned that Brioni decided not to proceed with the play, which he was very upset about. She was in the fields whacking nettles, very upset with her cousins. And yeah, she decided not to return home after that for a little while. We also learned that Emily suffers from migraines, which is why she is such a distant character and why it just seems like she isn't really that great of a mother. We learned that Robbie has very explicit feelings towards Cecilia, and that he even wrote a letter for Cecilia. He wrote two letters. One was explicit, one was just regular, but he accidentally told Brioni to give Cecilia the wrong letter, and that could be problematic. Alright, so what's new? Diving into chapter 9 here. One of the big things in chapter 9 is we get to see inside Cecilia's mind and how she feels living inside the Tallis household in a sense. In this particular chapter, we catch her, she's getting ready to get dressed to go down for dinner. She changed her dress 3 times, and just as soon as she's ready to go down, Jackson knocks on her door, which actually frightens her because with the way it reads, I guess it appears that she opens the door while he's knocking, so her fist is, so his fist is right in her face, so that scares her. But she discovers that the twins need socks, but she also discovers that their room is really a mess, so she really helps get them together and helps get their room together, almost like a mother, which I made sure to note right there. It also seemed like Cecilia is the woman in charge in the house, because there's a quote that said ultimately the success of the evening would be in Cecilia's care, even though the mother, Emily, would technically be the woman in charge. But since she's so reserved, so distant, she kind of unintentionally imposes these responsibilities on Cecilia. So yeah. Also, we know that Brioni is still missing since she hasn't returned because, again, as stated in the recap, she was mad about the play not being able to be performed due to her cousins. But later, Brioni does return with Robbie's letter that she gives to Cecilia, and at the end of chapter 9, Cecilia suspects that Brioni read the letter. So what's new? Moving on to chapter 10. In this chapter, we're giving insight into Brioni's head after she reads the letter. There's a quote, and I apologize I don't have the page numbers because the ebook I have doesn't actually have page numbers, which is great. But the quote says, "Her feelings confirm Brioni in her view that she was entering into an arena of adult emotion." However, she may have thought this, but her actions really showed that she didn't truly understand adult emotion, because she thinks that Cecilia is actually under attack by Robbie, and that she needs to protect Cecilia from Robbie. She discusses her thoughts with Lola while consoling her, realizing it was a very weird situation, but she decided to discuss her thoughts with Lola after Lola kind of showed up to her room upset and crying, and then she realized that she had the scratch on her arm, and then Lola said the twins had jumped on her. But getting back to the main theme, that's just a little side note. But getting back to the main theme, Brioni also accidentally walked in on Robbie and Cecilia having a very intimate moment in the library of the house, and she views their intimate moment as Robbie attacking Cecilia, and that's very problematic. All right, moving on. What's new in chapter 11? So this chapter is focused on the dinner, but also gives us insight into the odd relationship between Robbie and Cecilia from their point of view. Like I said, chapter 10 kind of gave us Brioni's point of view of Robbie and Cecilia, but coming back this chapter allowed us to see things how they really were between Robbie and Cecilia. So when Robbie first arrives, he follows Cecilia into the library where Robbie tries to explain the letter. This leads to Cecilia giving a very unclear confession that she has feelings for Robbie and that he discovered it first and that she should have knew all along as well. But that also that leads to them having a very intimate moment in the library. During that moment, they both say that they love each other. And while they're still having their intimate moment, Brioni happens to walk in on them And that's a very interesting moment, because if you think about how Brioni saw things, it's just very problematic, because again, she thinks that Robbie is attacking her sister Cecilia, which is actually far from the truth. And this causes hostility at the dinner table from Brioni towards Robbie and Cecilia. All right, also there are some important side notes, because this chapter was like very dense and contained like a lot of like valuable information, and like I didn't want it to be too bogged down in this presentation, so I kind of put these off to the side. But I think it's worth noting that Jack Tallis is like the anchor of the family. There's this one quote in chapter 10 that says his presence imposed order and allowed freedom. Burdens were lifted. So, you know, we don't really know much about Jack Tallis, so I think that little insight right there is like very helpful, like going forward, like what we can maybe expect from him when we finally see him in the story. Another side note, Brioni's point of view about what she witnesses between Robbie and Cecilia is not representative of what actually happened between Robbie and Cecilia. I thought this was like a very important side note. I know I've mentioned it a couple times, but it just shows how like different point of views alter the story and really alter the plot, and how a different point of view can lead to a different outcome within a story. Also, Emily discovers bruising on Lola's arm along with the deep scratch. And just going back to Lola's story about how the twins hurt her, it just seems kind of odd that like the twins did all that. So I think there's reasons to be skeptical right there. And it's also very important noting that the twins do decide to run away after dinner in chapter 11. Oh yeah, and here's a quick video. And after this is just my discussion questions. So I hope you guys enjoyed this presentation. And yeah, peace.